here I am in the city of Geneva. You can see the United Nations Human Rights Commission building right here, UNHCR, and here is the ITU. This is WIPO, and here is the United Nations right in front of me with the iconic broken chair. And then let's look at this. This is something I really hate. I look at this every time when I go to my institute, and I know that this is wrong at multiple levels. Indian Christians are not facing state-sponsored terrorism, and then about lynching Indian minorities and India no to terror attacks on minorities. I really don't know where this comes from, but this is repeatedly what is portrayed here. Stop burning Indian Christians, stop burning churches. All this is right in front of the United Nations chair. I always feel as if I should go and ask people who are putting up this kind of posters, but then I once again think of the philosophy that you must make your actions better. Don't focus on the negativity, focus only on your positive work.
Hello and welcome to News Bharati. For the last many years, and especially since 2019 and as 2024 comes close, we are seeing many attacks on India and India's growth story, India's development story, especially on international fronts. Recently, there was a statement made by George Soros and people like him, which was picked up by the international media as well as domestic media. But what does all this mean? What is the connection between all of this, and what are the examples of such malicious attack, which are most of them are based on completely fictitious characterization of as they see India is, or as they see India was when they left India. Now, today we will focus on one particular example from Geneva, as we all know, the UN headquarters is there. A lot of international media's attention is there. So Geneva is important. Geneva, if anybody doesn't know, is in Switzerland. Today we have with us Mrs. Sangeeta Godbole. She was a former IRS officer. She was principal commissioner in Chennai. She resigned a few years ago, and today, most importantly for our topic, she's based in Geneva. She's in Geneva Graduate Institute. She's focusing on trade and international relations. So today she will tell us about how all these posters, all the malicious incident that took place in Geneva, as you can see the pictures on our screen, how that happened and how is the Indian community in Geneva tackling it, how the MEA is tackling it, and how the government of India from New Delhi should tackle it. So, ma'am, to you.
Thank you for having me. It is a great pleasure. Um, well, I study in the Geneva Graduate Institute, therefore, I pass by those posters quite often. They are not there always, they are there only when very important United Nations or ILO or WHO, when these kind of very important international meetings happen, that is when these posters appear. And as you said, they are completely fictitious. They are absurd, actually. I mean, to say that Indian women are treated as slaves, everybody knows that this is nonsense. But at the same time, when you pass by those posters, you feel extremely agitated because it's so unfair, you know. I mean, your country being characterized as something really, really crazy, and that is the thing. And this location where they do it, it is a, in a sense, a public location. Anybody
Yeah.
can put up posters there. It is a very key location, and people, anyone who comes to Geneva as a tourist for the first time, would definitely want to go near the chair and take pictures, and all that beautiful UN buildings right behind. It's the UNHRC for the refugees is just there. WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization, just there. International Telecommunications Union, ITU, just there. So it's a very key area even within the very international Geneva plus WHO, WTO. They are all very close by, and
Right.
therefore having these kind of posters there is well, it's not a great thing. Certainly not.
Yeah. But so for someone who doesn't, who is not following any of this, maybe is completely a layman and maybe doesn't have any interest about day-to-day politics or international affairs, but cares about India. So for that person, how would you explain it to that person that this particular matter was serious and what exactly happened and why so many people, especially on the internet, we see that they are quite rightly so agitated about it?
Yeah. So, video was circulating on the net. Someone who had, just photographed these posters and said, "Well, this is terrible. How can this happen? I feel bad." Whatever it was, and then the power of social media is tremendous. And I was following it because I see these posters myself, and even in WhatsApp groups, it came in so many WhatsApp groups to me, and I think even it was there on Facebook, on Instagram, and particularly on Twitter. And on
Yeah.
Twitter, I saw that many people just tagged our home minister, our foreign minister, our PM, and foreign secretary, and they said, "What is all this happening? What are you going to do about it?" And in one of the newspaper, and then many articles were also published. One of the newspaper reports said that after it hit 1 million views on Twitter, that's not a joke, right? After it hit 1 million views, then the government summoned the Swiss ambassador. Uh,
On a Sunday, that too.
on a yeah, on a Sunday. So a Swiss ambassador being summoned on a Sunday is no joke. So government
Yeah.
took it very seriously, and the posters have disappeared. And actually, I fully expected them to be there today because they appear again and again. And today,
Hmm.
very important UN meetings are happening, but they were not there. So that's a good update. I think good things have happened, and hopefully those posters will not appear again. So that is the story behind it.
Right. So, apart from summoning Swiss ambassador, and as you rightly said, that the gravity of summoning Swiss ambassador on Sunday is very serious matter, not something that happens every day. But apart from that, and apart from the messaging from Delhi to Switzerland, that this matter is serious and we take it seriously, even though there might be a principle of free speech there. So how do you say, or how much do you think the government of India or the ambassadors in Switzerland have actually acted upon this particular matter? Or has there been any information about what the government has said or has conveyed to the Swiss government?
Well, what the government conveyed to the Swiss ambassador was there in public domain, and the Swiss ambassador said, "Look, this is not the view of the Swiss people. This is not the view of the Swiss government, but this is free speech, X, Y, and Z. But I will convey your concerns to Bern. Bern is where the Swiss capital is."
Yeah,
What personally I would, and this is completely my personal view. Personally, I would feel that this is the tip of an iceberg. These
right.
things are, this is not some do-gooder or some NGO just coming and saying things about, it's not like young interns saying, "Oh, we want more pay for our internship." It is not something as simple as that. Those posters are vicious, to say that Assam is occupied by India, to say that India uses rape as terror. I mean, this is completely malevolent and
Yeah,
vicious messaging. And personally, I would think that there must be a good, what shall I say, agenda is not the right word, but yes, there must be an agenda behind it. This is a tip of an iceberg. And well, I can say that I dug out, sitting in Geneva, I on from the internet, I dug out the form that the Geneva canton requires to be filled before putting anything up there. You have to pay a fee, you have to fill up a form well in advance, at least 30 days in advance, if not more. So the Geneva canton has this information. They know exactly the name, address, telephone number, everything of who is putting up these posters. Now it is for the government of India and the MEA to dig this out, to make this was given to you. They will always say, "Oh no, 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 it's freedom of speech." All that is fine,
Yeah.
but still, freedom of speech comes circumscribed by certain responsibility. And I suppose government of India must already be doing this. That we need to find out who's making such atrocious allegations against a country which is now a power, right? We
Yeah.
are not the India of, well, let's say 20 years ago, when sab kuch chalta hai and who cares. It's not like that anymore. So I think it is up to the government and the MEA to get to the bottom of this and find out who is doing it. The other thing is also that we need to be more vigilant, right, as just common citizens. If that video hadn't surfaced, nobody knew what was happening. And thousands of people from all over the world, very key people, were watching this as they came for these international meetings. There's this bus stop right next, the nation's bus stop, the Nation bus stop, as they say. And everybody here takes public transport, and people would be waiting just there and watching what is happening. So this may be happening in other parts of the world as well. I'm sure Geneva is not the only place where such extremely, what shall I say, malevolent, as I said, messaging is happening. And it is for all citizens to be vigilant and to bring this up and to tag our leadership and say, look, this is what I won't take it lying down. I don't like my country being the butt of such ridiculous kind of messaging. So I think that is how it should go in the future, I think.
Yeah, just before we move on to the particular posters or how ridiculous the posters were, just one point before we move on. So this argument by the Swiss government, or at least the hypothetical argument based on their past record, that there is freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and we can't disclose the information about who actually put out all these posters. Is doesn't it look very similar to the Twitter argument that there is a freedom of speech, but the identity of who is saying all the racist stuff or even white supremacist stuff, especially in US, that they can't reveal because of freedom of speech. But here, this is the actual public square. This is not the uh, digital public square argument that they gave for the Twitter. So here they don't even have that argument to say that we can't give because this is about the public square. So can't we just, I mean, by that logic, we get the information that we need, because if you're alleging something so serious, we at least deserve to know who is alleging.
Exactly. See, uh, first of all, Twitter is a private company.
Yeah,
Let's get that straight.
yeah,
This is the government of Switzerland who is allowing that public space to be used for a fee for certain messaging, right? So there is a big difference between the two.
yeah.
And we, all of us know pretty well that freedom of speech, yes, but there are limits to what can be said.
Hmm.
Number two and number three, I'm sure I don't need to say this, but there are ways of getting information. It is not just writing a letter to someone and they tell you, oh, sorry, we can't. See, sometimes it happens that, India, this is my pet peeve, or my, what shall I say, pet complaint, that India doesn't know its worth,
Yeah, yeah,
especially in the international arena. We sell ourselves short all the time. We are a massive market. We are a technology giant. We are a massive services provider, and we don't know how to use that. We ourselves have not realized how important we are, or how important, or how key we are in global affairs. I mean, at some level, I think it understands, but that understanding has not percolated up to the bottom. And that is
yeah,
something that is required, right?
yeah,
You have the levers, you have to use those levers. And it is not just a question of writing one letter and they write you a letter back and, oh, sorry, we cannot disclose it. No, it's not
yeah.
like
Absolutely, absolutely. So moving on to the posters itself. So we will put out the images on the YouTube, but can you just tell us about one or two examples of how ludicrous the posters were and what the content in those posters were? Just for the sake of our viewers.
Yeah, so as I said, I'm just looking at that the posters again. But
Sure.
one of the posters said Assam under Indian siege. Really?
Yeah, yeah,
What are you even talking about? I'm a great fan of the Northeast. I've been there since I when I was in class 11 the first time, and after that I've been there many times. And I mean the Northeast is really here for me. You are saying Assam is under Indian siege? What? Absolute nonsense. I mean, the next poster says freedom of Assam from the shackles of Indian oppression. Seriously,
yeah,
what are you talking about? Right? The next poster says, yeah, and then stop racism in Manipur. What are you even talking about? No, every Indian minister is mandated to visit the Northeast once in 15 days, if I'm not mistaken, or
yeah,
some such frequency. And you're saying we are practicing racism in Manipur? No. The Manipuris won't agree to it, right? So this kind of extremely divisive, destructive kind of messaging was there on those posters. Stop burning Indian Christians. Hello?
yeah.
I mean, what are you even talking about? I saw many people on Twitter also say, oh, sorry, nothing like that is happening here.
Yeah,
So,
this was back then in 2015. There was similar thing about the churches being burnt in Delhi, and this is the same line they're continuing, even though it has been proven wrong many times.
yeah, I
That
mean, nothing
burning
is
Christians and
happening.
everything.
Yeah. Why are you talking about in 2023? Why are you saying stop burning Indian Christians? There was one more poster which said India uses rape as a terror instrument. Come on. What are you even saying? I mean, that is something which really feels horrible. And you just spoke about the Indian community in Geneva. Since I'm in Geneva, I'm in some Indian groups. And these people have been away from India for a long time. Some have been away for
Yeah,
as long as almost 40 years, even. They have come here, they have become Swiss citizens or not, but they are effectively now in Switzerland. Even they were feeling so disturbed about it. And there was a lot of discussion in other groups as well in Switzerland, Indian group, which are saying, what is all this? We have to do something about it. We feel ashamed that in the land where we stay, such kind of posters are put up against India. So I think it also, when we expose such things, it
yeah,
also activates many people who are otherwise a bit dormant. And they, oh, everything is fine. But when you expose this, when you expose such wrongdoing, then these people, they will also start getting activated and making their voices heard. So I think in that sense as well, it's quite important.
yeah. So, just before we move on, absolutely last question. So, do you think this will have a similar impact on India? I mean, do you think that this might be the strategy, especially on the international forums, as I said in the introduction, that the recent George Soros and everything that the Open Society, ironically, is doing, is that the same campaign that they ran against Israel about disinvestment, boycott, and everything. Do you think that since now in some international media circles they are labeled Israel as an apartheid state, do you see a design where they would say the same thing against India just because they don't agree politically with the current establishment and start boycott, disinvestment campaign against India, or do you think that's just too far fetched?
Look, I'm not really into international conspiracy theories, so I'm not sure about this, frankly. But I think it is for the government of India to dig into it, to
Yeah,
investigate it, to find out who is doing these things, and then to take adequate measures against it, right? So when you tell
right.
Switzerland we won't tolerate it, you should really not tolerate it. If you just say okay, we won't tolerate it, and the next time it happens you're not doing anything, or even afterwards you're not taking any proactive steps, then you're not tolerated is not taken very seriously. So
Yeah,
I have
absolutely.
no clue. Yeah, apart
Yeah,
from
yeah.
that I
So,
don't really have anything.
okay. Absolutely last question. How should people of India who are in India react to it, or how should they counter to it?
How they did. There's nothing more to be done, right? For example, I can tell you, um I think there was one Rishi Bagri and one Meg
Hmm.
Updates. These two guys
Yeah,
on the internet, they were the ones who tweeted that video, and then it like really took off. So I think this thing really showed the power of the Indian people and exactly
yeah.
what they're doing. They are very vocal about if someone is not treating their country fairly, they know what to do, and that's what they've done, I think.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am, for telling us everything about this horrible malicious incident, as you rightly said, in Geneva. And people should take it more seriously because, firstly, it was in about the same, I think, 15 days period. There was a statement from George Soros, then Rahul Gandhi's statement in London, and then Geneva happened. So I think at least people in the government should take this seriously and not let it go as some uh, fringe element doing something against India. And thank you for getting our attention to it. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, and a pleasure to be here.